I pretended to be mute in the bed of the most powerful CEO in the capital, Chris West. Until the day his white moonlight returned to the country. He handed me $30 million as a breakup fee. Caught off guard, I blurted out, "Thank you, Mr. West. Very generous of you." He let out a sharp laugh. "Mute girl, is this some kind of medical miracle?" The mute-style canary. Didn't need to flatter him off the bed, didn't need to moan praises in bed either. My only real struggle was, not being able to curse at him when I was pissed off. Like now. Chris noticed I was zoning out. He grabbed my waist and flipped me over without warning. His lips bit and gnawed fiercely, like he wanted to tear my skin apart and devour it. Ah, bastard. I cursed him in my mind, while on the surface I looked pitiful and useless, tears welled in my red eyes and fell like raindrops. As I was jolted back and forth, I clung to the only anchor I had, his neck. I rubbed my cheek against his, pleading like I always did. Experience told me this look usually made him end the battle, quickly. But tonight, it was like something had possessed him. 0.01 millimeters ultra-thin after another. From the bed, to the bathroom, to the sofa. It wasn't until the middle of the night that he finally pulled me into his arms, satisfied, and lay back in bed. I was exhausted. But the moment I thought about what was going to happen next, all my sleep vanished. That afternoon, one of Chris's buddies had come over. The study door hadn't fully closed, so I overheard fragments of their conversation. "Anna's flying back tomorrow. Is President West sending a driver or going himself?" "Anna? You think you can call her that?" Chris's voice turned cold. His friend quickly corrected himself. Okay, I don't qualify. It's your private nickname." Though it sounded like he was joking, everyone in our circle knew. Chris had a white moonlight, someone he'd never let go of. She'd been protected so well by him that no one knew her name or what she looked like. No one knew why they weren't together, either. Once, I had been bored and tidying up his study. I stumbled upon an old, yellowed photo. The woman wore a hat and faced away from the camera, only showing half her face. But that half looked almost exactly like me. A memory flashed through my mind, the day I first met Chris. I had been standing by the road, playing with my phone, when a car stopped in front of me. I didn't check, thought it was the ride I ordered. So I opened the door and got in. When you're out in the world, identity is something you give yourself. As a socially anxious person, I always carried a scrolling screen that read, "I'm mute. Please don't talk to me." I'd flash it at every driver the moment I got in. The moment I shoved the screen at him, I finally looked up. And saw the driver was a stunningly handsome man, so cold and elegant he made even a ride-share car feel like a luxury vehicle I couldn't afford to sit in. He stared at my phone screen over and over, stunned. Finally, he asked in a raspy voice, "Where to?" Looking back now, I finally understood. The expression on Chris's face that day. It wasn't because I got into the wrong car. It wasn't because of the mute identity I had faked. It was because I looked like her. His white moonlight. Back in the present, the room fell briefly silent. Then his friend's voice resumed, "What about the one at home? She's timid, mute. She probably can't meet people." I didn't stay to hear more. Quietly, I turned and left. If I stayed another second, I'd laugh out loud on the spot. 3 years. I had pretended to be mute for 3 whole years. And finally, it was over. I was so excited I couldn't sleep. Turning my back to Chris, I unlocked my phone. And opened the Canary Mutual Support Group. I had been added during one of Chris's social events, dragged into a private room by a friendly older sister. Everyone in the group shared one ultimate goal, to get a sky-high breakup fee and retire into financial freedom. I couldn't resist sharing, "Chris's white moonlight is flying back soon." The message lit up the group. Every night owl still awake exploded with excitement. "Ah, congrats, Michelle. She's coming. My sugar daddy's white moonlight is rumored to be studying in Germany. So jealous? Mine doesn't even have a white moonlight." Emotionally dead edition. After the wave of envy came the real questions. Salma tagged me, "President West is rich and generous. He'll definitely give you a massive breakup fee, right?" Chris had always been generous. 50 grand a month in pocket money. Designer bags and jewelry every other week. Sometimes, even random luxury cars. He'd once tried to give me a mansion. But I didn't take it. A broke girl like me couldn't afford the maintenance fees, couldn't afford to resell it either. Just thinking about hiring a realtor gave my social anxiety self a breakdown. So my only hope for getting rich was the breakup fee. Maybe a few million, or even tens of millions? The more I thought about it, the more excited I got. Twisting in bed like a pretzel. The next second, Chris pulled me into his arms again. "I thought you weren't sleepy," he said. His burning body pressed down again. Terrified, I flailed, then clasped my hands under my cheek. "I'm going to sleep now. Seriously." My voice was silent, but my actions said it all. Chris leaned down and said casually, "Tomorrow I'm going to pick up someone very important. Want to come with me?" My eyes shot open. Wait. What? Did he just ask me, his substitute, to go pick up his white moonlight? Was he trying to make her die of rage on the spot? I shook my head violently. Chris looked at me for a moment and nodded. All right. You're timid. You can meet her later when you're ready. He always gave in to me. Back when we first got together, he had offered to arrange a job for me. I refused, and he never brought it up again. For a homebody with social anxiety, this life. No need to work, food delivered, clothes provided. Was honestly hard to let go of. My emotions dipped. Then, buzz. My phone vibrated. It was a bank transfer notification. I might not be back tomorrow night. These next couple of days, I probably won't have time to see you. Take this money, buy whatever you like. I ignored Chris, my eyes glued to the phone screen. Ones, tens, hundreds, thousands, 10,000s, 100,000s, millions. I rubbed my eyes, counted again. Yep, 8 digits. Chris gave me 30 million. 30 million. A poor girl, suddenly rich. The money rushed to my head. Overwhelmed, I blurted out, "Thank you, boss. So generous." For eyes met. The air froze. Crap. In my excitement, I forgot. I'm supposed to be mute. Just, how can someone be so polite? Realizing what I'd done, I slapped my hand over my mouth. My knees buckled, and I collapsed into the blankets. Next second, Chris grabbed the back of my neck and yanked me upright. "Little mute," he said, "the girl I've cherished for 3 years suddenly talks." He looked both amused and furious. "Don't tell me this is your miracle recovery." That cold joke wasn't funny at all. I had nowhere to hide. To escape the scorching stare pinned to me, I covered my face with both hands. "Little mute. Say something." I shook my head. "Mutes don't speak," I mumbled. Chris rubbed his forehead, exasperated. Looking at the flushed girl in front of him, desperate to disappear. "You really have nothing to say?" I bit my lip, uncertain. Yes, I had faked being mute. I lied to him. But the breakup money was already in my account. What more was there to say? Still, clearly. I had to say something. Think. What would Chris want to hear? Suddenly. A flash of inspiration. Brother. Chris's breath hitched. As a cultured person. Or at least someone who had read far too many questionable romance novels. I dug frantically through my mental archives of indecent lines. Carefully choosing, filtering, comparing, until I finally found one sentence I could actually say aloud. Brother is so big, so amazing. I really like it. I stuttered through the praise, then nervously parted 2 fingers covering my eyes. To peek at Chris's expression. His brows were lifted, the corners of his mouth not tight at all. He didn't look angry. After running from the truth for so long, I guess I couldn't keep hiding behind the mute act forever. Besides, tonight was my final night as a canary. I might as well play the role properly. I squeezed my brain dry, searching for more lines from my internal library. Brother was so good tonight, like you took some kind of magical strength pill. Chris's face darkened instantly. What did you just say? Say it again. I swallowed hard. What? Was that the wrong line? Maybe he didn't like the brother thing? Right. Chris was older. He probably didn't appreciate the whole brother, little sister flavor. My heart pounded like a drum. Bracing myself, I tried again. Daddy was amazing tonight. I didn't get to finish the sentence. My words were swallowed by a deep, consuming kiss. Chris grabbed my restless hands and guided them lower and lower. His eyes, dark and deep, glinted greenish under the warm wall lamp. Little mute, he murmured, voice rough, call me again. The sky outside was already brightening. By the time Chris, apparently having opened the door to a new world, finally relented. I buried my damp, useless head into the pillow, dazed. Thank God I'd had the foresight to pretend to be mute for 3 years. If I hadn't, I really would have been killed on that bed. When I woke again, afternoon light was already pouring in. My whole body ached. My throat, after crying out for an entire night, was so hoarse I could barely make a sound. Now I really was mute. Dragging legs that felt like prosthetics, I limped downstairs. Aunt Wang saw me, nodded a greeting, and silently brought over a bowl of warm porridge before disappearing. Like some kind of household fairy. Chris knew I didn't like interacting with strangers. He had instructed everyone in the house from the beginning to lower their presence as much as possible. Great for a social phobic like me. The more I thought about it, the more I felt. Chris was actually pretty good. Rich, handsome, gentle when he should be, rough when he shouldn't. His only flaw was, there was another woman in his heart. I sighed for 3 seconds. Then, without thinking, tapped open the 30 million transfer record. Suddenly, it seemed I didn't love him that much after all. My heart was too small. It only had room for money. As for Chris, fine. He was a good person. I could help him out a bit. Thinking this, I lay comfortably back on the bed, picked up the novel on my shelf. Chapter 1, The White Moonlight Returns. Perfect. This was exactly the material I needed to study. Half an hour later, I was so annoyed by the idiotic male and female leads' lack of communication that my liver actually hurt. Expressionlessly, I exited the novel and opened WeChat. I sent Chris a peeking kitten emoji. He replied instantly, awake? Aunt One kept the porridge warm for you. We'll eat something better tonight. Don't snack too much. Still hurt? Feeling any better? Ah. Men with ability ask you if you're tired. Men with great ability ask you if you still hurt. My legs kicked wildly under the blanket. After struggling for a long time, I finally answered coolly, Chris didn't reply instantly this time. Probably busy. I took the chance to forward him all the relationship advice articles I had saved. Don't miss the girl beside you. No matter what a man says, actions speak louder. 30 tricks to chase a girl, know her preferences. I sent nearly 10 before finally feeling satisfied enough to open my game. 2 hours passed in a flash. When I checked my messages again, I realized Chris had replied long ago. Received. Received? Received what? Before I could figure it out, my phone rang. Chris's assistant. Confused, I went downstairs and opened the door. He held out a black card toward me. Miss Brown, this is the supplementary card President West asked me to bring you. My eyes widened like fried eggs. F, for me. The always stiff and robotic Mr. Assistant's face cracked for the first time. Miss Brown, weren't you mute? We stared at each other. Right. I hadn't told him the truth. The poor man's elite-level CPU must have overheated. After I explained everything, he pushed up his glasses, brain rebooting. My apologies. I overreacted. I pressed my lips together, embarrassed, and quickly changed the subject. I heard President West is picking up someone important at the airport this afternoon. He nodded. Yes, Miss Brown. Would you like to accompany him? Accompany him? To pick up the White Moonlight? Were straight men insane? I forced a smile. That wouldn't be appropriate. He blinked, suddenly reconsidering. Yes. It is a bit sudden. Perhaps it's better to prepare yourself before meeting her. What did that mean? Why was this White Moonlight someone I had to meet? I immediately dodged the topic. Chris is so busy, did you help him prepare flowers? A gift? Dinner for her arrival? No need to worry, Miss Brown. President West arranged everything last month. Last month? Wow. He really treasured her. I looked at the black card in my hand. A sour, slightly bitter taste rose in my chest. After 3 years together, it was impossible not to feel anything at all. To prevent myself from thinking nonsense, I said goodbye to the assistant and crawled back into bed to play games. I played until past midnight. My eyes burning, head spinning. Before dropping my phone and knocking out completely. Half asleep, half awake, I heard the door open. Through the blur, I saw the faint outline of a bare back. Broad, toned, a sharp line running down the spine. Was I even dreaming about Chris now? I scolded myself silently and rolled over. Before I could drift off again, cool lips brushed my forehead, then my eyelids, then my nose. Finally landing on my still swollen lips. The kiss made my mind hazy. But when Chris lifted my leg, I jolted awake. I shot upright like a spring. It wasn't a dream? Why are you back? Chris stepped out of the bathroom, a white towel wrapped loosely around his waist. The dim light illuminated his pale skin, his 8-pack openly, shamelessly taunting me. Front or back, there was only one word to describe this man. Deadly. I licked my dry lips. Suddenly, thirsty. Why can't I come back? He asked. He checked the time, then explained, I worked overtime. Took longer than expected, but it's done now. I don't need to go in tomorrow. I blinked. Overtime? But, you left to pick someone up. Didn't you push everything for that? That's what the assistant told you. Chris spread his hands, helpless. She changed flights without telling me. I waited at the airport for 3 hours before realizing she hadn't boarded. She's probably still angry. Making trouble for me on purpose. I clicked my tongue. This White Moonlight sounded kind of hard to handle. But thinking about it, if she were easy to handle, they would have been together long ago. There would be no place for a substitute like me. Chris finished speaking and beckoned me. Still swollen? Come, let me see. Before, I would have blushed and obeyed. But now. Did you read the messages I sent you on WeChat? He nodded. That card has no limit. Use it however you like. Isn't that catering to your preferences? Damn it. He was seducing me again. I looked away abruptly. Shameless man. Like a rotten cabbage flaunting itself. He clearly didn't understand what I meant, but patted the spot beside him anyway. Sit. Let's talk. I studied him carefully, making sure his eyes were clear. Even a little wise, like he'd entered post-battle clarity. Only then did I reluctantly sit down. Past is past, now is now, he said gently. No matter what misunderstandings we had, if two people want to stay together, the first step is cutting off unnecessary ties. Then give the person you love a rightful place beside you. A sense of security. Chris paused, thoughtful. So your suggestion is? To prevent Chris and his white moonlight from dragging their misunderstanding across 800 emotional chapters, I decided to fast forward straight to the finale. Proposal, I said calmly. If you two love each other, then get married. After that day, Chris really did become busy. But he still didn't tell me to leave. He continued feeding me well and treating me gently. I didn't understand. Was he planning to keep both me and his true love? I shared my frustration in the group chat. Salma replied immediately, totally normal. Men are built like that. Love from the heart is above the waist, love from the flesh is below the waist. He loves the white moonlight, but he also loves you, the red rose. I punched my pillow in fury. Sure enough, Chris was no good man either. No. I couldn't let this continue. If he wouldn't kick me out, I'd leave myself. I grabbed my suitcase, walked into the walk-in closet. And realized I had way too many things to pack. I hated shopping, so Chris simply ordered all the new seasonal items himself and had them sent straight to the house. If they fit in the closet, great. If not, he'd have someone clear out last season's pieces and store them elsewhere. Come to think of it, he even bought a villa nearby just to store all the overflow. At the time, he said he'd transfer the property to my name. But I hated going out and didn't want the hassle of managing it or reselling, so I declined. Now I was picking out only what I liked, clothes, bags. What I couldn't carry, I secretly packed and shipped out in batches. On the way back, I ran into Chris's assistant. He handed me a form. Miss Brown, he said solemnly, I'm planning to propose to my girlfriend. Would you mind helping me fill out this questionnaire? I glanced at it. Questions like, Chinese style or Western style? Indoor or outdoor setting? Mind having family and friends present? Very detailed. Shouldn't you be asking your girlfriend these? I asked, raising an eyebrow. He looked stiff. My girlfriend is quite similar to you, Miss Brown. I wanted to be a surprise, so I can't ask her directly. I instantly sensed something was off. You. His eyes flickered. He wouldn't meet my gaze. You don't like me, do you? Absolutely not. He coughed in panic. I meant your personality is similar to hers. The rest, very different. It still felt weird, but I took the form anyway and started filling it in. As a social phobe, of course I chose an indoor venue. Proposals need atmosphere, witnesses. And if he was proposing, his girlfriend had probably already met the relatives. Better to have familiar faces than strangers, right? So I checked, I don't mind. Putting myself in her shoes, I gave each option deep thought. When I handed the form back, I wished him well. He accepted it with a smile. No, Miss Brown. I'm wishing you happiness. See? I knew this guy was weird. Then came the group chat. President West is proposing to his white moonlight. I heard she loves dolphins, they're going to propose at the aquarium. That simple? I thought he'd go all out with citywide screens and fireworks. When I saw that last one, I couldn't help chiming in, citywide displays? That sounds so cringe. Aquariums are great, adorable animals, romantic lighting, calming water. My comment was quickly ignored. They were too busy debating what kind of diamond ring he'd pull out. I put my phone away, bored. But a strange thought hit me. Not only did the white moonlight look like me, she even liked the same things. How could two people be that similar? And then, that night, I met her. Chris hung up his coat, looking casual. We're free the day after tomorrow. Want to visit the aquarium together? The word aquarium hit me like a slap. I immediately thought of the proposal. Just us? I asked, stunned. Chris leaned closer. If you'd be uncomfortable, it could just be the two of us. What was he even saying? I was too confused to keep guessing. So, what about Anna? Isn't she going too? Chris's hand, midway through untying his tie, paused. He turned slowly and stared at me. You knew? I nodded. Not surprising, right? Suddenly, his arm hooked around my waist. My feet left the floor as he carried me sideways onto his lap. Leaning down, he brushed his forehead against mine. Don't worry. She'll like you. I froze. What does that mean, she'll like me? You're raising a canary that openly now? I couldn't take it. Couldn't take any of it. I dodged the kiss he tried to plant on me. Gross. You're disgusting. Chris blinked, confused at the sudden insult. Before he could ask, I scrambled out of his lap and dashed into the bedroom. He followed, only to see a tightly wrapped ball of girl hiding beneath every last blanket on the bed. You're not allowed in. You're sleeping in the study tonight. He reached into the covers. That's when I remembered, damn, I'm still just a kept canary. I braced for the scolding. But all I got was a tug on the blankets. It's not breathable. Don't suffocate yourself. His hand gently patted my back, like soothing a child. Be good. I won't touch you. Then he grabbed another pillow. And quietly left the room. My heart, wound tight with anger and shame, started thumping uncontrollably. I clenched my sweaty hands. Michelle. You're such a hopeless romantic. I smacked my head against the headboard a few times. No more delays. Tomorrow. You have to leave tomorrow. Chris had been uneasy all morning. He kept rereading the same project file, unable to sign off. Suddenly, something clicked. He called his assistant into the office. Did you tell Michelle about Anna? The assistant paused. She asked me about the airport pickup. I just answered. Lightning cracked through the air. Chris bolted upright. Did you ever tell her who Anna was? The assistant froze. Didn't you tell her? Chris's expression turned cold. So that's why she made me sleep in the study last night. He needed to go home. Now. Before things got worse. Just then, someone knocked at the door. President West, a delivery came for you. From Miss Brown. He tore it open. It was the black card he'd just given her. Something was definitely wrong. He hadn't even had time to dial her. When a message popped up on his screen, you're proposing to your white moonlight. So I'm going back home to find my childhood sweetheart. May we both find happiness. He immediately tried to call. She'd already blocked him. Chris's assistant looked at his boss's face stiffen, his eyes deadened. Even the muscles in his cheek were twitching, like he'd just been cuckolded. Book me a flight. Now. Earliest departure. To be fair, that childhood sweetheart wasn't entirely made up. I was going to find someone I knew when I was young. The moment the plane landed, I took a connecting ride straight to the old neighborhood. Standing at the entrance of the community, I froze. How was I supposed to find someone after all these years? Would he even still be here? People bustled in and out of the gates. But my legs felt rooted to the ground. An elderly man brushed past my shoulder, then turned around, puzzled. Young and pretty girl like this, but mute. What a shame. He said it loudly. Too loudly. It drew everyone's attention. They turned to look. Whispers started. Fingers pointed. Panic gripped me. Breath faltered. My vision spun. And just as I was about to collapse, a pair of gentle hands caught me. A paper funnel was placed over my nose and mouth. A warm palm pressed against my chest, guiding me to breathe. Inhale, exhale, breathe. That's it. The crowd was ushered away. The soft, steady tone calmed me down. I remembered. There had once been someone, too, who caught me when I fell. Who whispered, Michelle is amazing. She's not useless at all. Be strong. We'll get away soon. Not, sister, next time we meet, call me, brother. My eyes, clouded like foggy glass, locked onto the blurred figure. Brother. I murmured instinctively. Easy, sweetheart. Don't be afraid. The familiar words slowly steadied my breathing. But as my vision cleared, I realized. I had mistaken the person. Panicked, I stammered, I'm sorry, ma'am, thank you for helping me. The sister chuckled, then turned to chat with someone behind her. She called me, sister? What a sweet-talking little girl. Pfft. I'm off to get lash extensions and my nails done. Might throw on a wig too. Look more like a sister, right? I leaned forward to peek. An old woman with silvery hair, leaning on a cane. Then I turned to see the woman who had caught me. She wasn't a sister at all. She was a fashionable, gracefully aged grandmother who looked like she walked straight out of a luxury ad. She helped me up. This is my neighbor, she said. She used to be a doctor when she was younger. She was the first to notice you weren't in good shape. I quickly thanked her. Both grannies were very warm and welcoming, even inviting me over to their place as a guest. I took the opportunity to ask around about the person I was looking for. But the information I had was too little. Plus, one of the grannies had just returned from abroad, and the other had just gotten out of the hospital. Neither of them really knew who lived in the neighborhood these days. Well, Michelle often comes over to my place. I'll ask around for you, one of them offered helpfully. You shameless old hag, the other one huffed. The girl was being polite and you actually think she sees you as her elder sister? She's unreliable. Let Grandma ask instead, the other sniffed. I've got great connections. There's no one in this neighborhood I don't know. With that mouth of yours, the first one snorted. Even I don't believe people like you. And just like that, they were bickering again. I was about to step out the door but awkwardly retreated. Squeezing myself between the two grannies, I started to mediate. All right, both of you are wonderful sisters. Let's not fight. By the time I stepped out of the community again, it was already dark. I wandered the streets aimlessly. My footsteps were steady but slow. The stillness of night only deepened the feeling of loneliness in my chest. I felt like I had nowhere to go. Michelle. Someone was calling me. I turned toward the voice. A small electric scooter zipped through the alleyway, cutting off the person who was approaching. Little Mute. Despite the surrounding noise, I clearly heard a cold male voice. Got guts now, huh? Running this far all by yourself. It seemed like everything had gone wrong for Chris today. The plane tickets were booked last minute, and only business class was left. With his nearly 1.9-meter frame, he was forced to squeeze his legs into the cramped seat, and was seated next to a loud, bratty kid the entire flight. When he finally landed and rushed to the address Michelle had left on the package, he found out she never even came back home. After some effort, he got Salma's number, Michelle's only close friend, and called her, hoping for clues. But as soon as the call connected, he was bombarded with curses before he could say a word. He was blocked right after. But all the frustration in his chest disappeared in a flash the moment he saw Michelle. The scooter finally moved out of the way. Chris let out a long breath, took a few quick steps forward, and stood in front of the girl. He cupped her face and pressed his forehead gently against hers. Michelle. Be good. They were so close. His voice was low, soft, a little coaxing, a little helpless. What are you doing here? I asked. I came to find you. The night wind stung my eyes. My nose tingled. Chris, how can you be like this? At that moment, I couldn't keep lying to myself anymore. Tears welled up as I started yelling at him. Chris, you jerk. You clearly already like someone else, so why did you mess with me? Chris looked both pained and amused. Michelle, how can you still not tell I like you? Huh? I stared at him, dumbfounded. What about Anna? Isn't she your one true love? The only one you ever call by name? Chris sighed. Words can lie. But seeing is believing. I'll take you to meet her, you'll understand. Chris started dragging me back toward the neighborhood. I chattered behind him. If you like me, why don't you call me by name, huh? Why call me Anna with such affection? Chris, you're not really one of those guys Salma talked about, right? You know, the kind who loves one person emotionally but hooks up with another physically? You love Anna with your heart and me with your body, is that it? Chris twitched at my rant and quickly covered my mouth. Little Mute, zip it. I pried his hand away, glaring. You call me, sweetheart, when you like me, but the moment you don't, I'm back to being Little Mute? Huh? Chris exhaled deeply. Michelle. Sweetheart. Don't be like this. I covered my face, forcing myself to calm down. On second thought, maybe this whole thing was one big misunderstanding. Maybe Anna was a child, or a pet, or heck, even a bowl of nostalgic fried rice. My mind ran wild. Does your Anna live in this neighborhood too? I nudged Chris. When we see her later, don't act all lovey-dovey, okay? Just call her by her full name. Otherwise, I'll get the wrong idea again. Chris gave me a sidelong glance, looking complicated. But under my relentless nagging, he eventually agreed. Haha. I've officially turned the tables. The surroundings became more and more familiar until we stopped at the door I had visited earlier that afternoon. Chris rang the bell. The one who answered was the trendy young woman from before. What are you doing here? Am I not allowed to come? Something about their vibe felt weird. Wait. Was Anna her granddaughter? That would make sense. I peeked out from behind Chris and greeted her politely. Hi, sis. Then I gave Chris a kick, hinting for him to say hello. Chris froze, inhaled deeply, then squeezed his eyes shut. Anna, trendy auntie equals Anna herself. You brat. How many times have I told you, don't call me by my full name? She glared. You trying to give me a heart attack so you can inherit my assets early? Chris raised a brow. You won't let me call you grandma because it makes you feel old and ruins your chances of finding love again. But you also don't want me to call you by your full name because Rock sounds too rustic. I took Grandpa's last name, West. How would you understand my pain? Before, calling you Anna was fine. But now? He looked at me pointedly. Your future granddaughter-in-law minds it. So I'll stop. Anna was mid-rant when those words hit her. She turned sharply to me, eyes wide. I instinctively shrank behind Chris. Dead. I'm dead. Who lets their grandchild call grandma by her first name? Yo! Old Rock, your grandson's here. The other granny across the hall opened her door, having heard the commotion. Anna exploded. You noisy hag. You think your last name, Ma, sounds any better? Grandma Linda admitted freely, of course not. I've been a beast of burden all my life, and I don't deny it. At least I'm not a shameless old hag who insists her grandson call her Anna. A war of the century was about to break out. I tried to step forward and mediate, but Chris pulled me into the house. Don't bother. They're always like this. As it turned out, Grandma Linda had once performed surgery on Anna back in the day. Later, the West family hired her to care for Anna's health. The two of them had been bickering for half a lifetime. Now, in their twilight years, fate had reversed their health situations. Grandma Linda had just gotten out of the hospital, while Anna had only recently returned to the country. She had even changed her flight last minute, which was why Chris hadn't been able to pick her up that day. The living room was quiet. Anna glanced at her eldest grandson, then at me, her new granddaughter-in-law. Goodness, she murmured, such a lovely girl, and you're telling me she's mute? Chris looked deeply uncomfortable. People really do get busy when they're embarrassed. I ran a hand through my hair, pretending to admire the decor, trying my best to avoid Chris's gaze. Anna had long since given up expecting anything from this aloof grandson of hers. No matter what, at least now she had a soft, fragrant little girl to spoil and dress up. She rubbed her hands together in excitement. I shrank my neck. A chill ran down my back. We ended up staying the whole night. Looking around the room, I was surprised by how modest President West's old residence was. Chris explained, my grandfather hated being ostentatious. I grew up attending public schools. Aside from the fact that our entire neighborhood belonged to the West family, everything else was pretty ordinary. I shot Chris a sharp glare. Humble bragging? Seriously? But then, something on the desk caught my eye. A photo. My gaze locked onto it. I stepped forward in disbelief and grabbed the frame, holding it up beside Chris's face. You. The pretty sister who saved me when I was little, was that you? Chris's expression darkened. With a sigh, he pulled me into his arms and said helplessly, I told you, next time we meet, you should call me brother. When I was 5, my stepfather sold me to human traffickers. But instead of just selling children, they kept a few easier to control, and forced us to beg on the streets. They planned to break my legs so I'd look more pitiful and get more money. Just when they were about to do it, a wounded girl in the corner with scars all over her body shielded me in her arms. She was pretty. She told them, she's cute. If she can still walk, she can go into malls to beg. Children with missing limbs weren't allowed in most places, but I could still get in. They hesitated, then agreed. From that day on, a woman began taking me into malls to beg. Every time we saw someone, she'd force me to run up and cling to their leg. If they didn't give money, I wouldn't let go. I'd cry and wail pitifully. Within a week, I became the top performer in the begging group, and got the best treatment. Whenever I had extra food, I'd secretly sneak it to the older sister who once spoke up for me. She was always covered in injuries, even burned scars on her face. She told me not to be afraid. And she told me she had a plan to escape. She wasn't lying. We escaped. Before we parted, she said, I'm actually a boy. My grandma was sick and needed surgery. I wore a dress just to make her happy. Who would have thought? He had barely left the hospital when someone knocked him out and kidnapped him. Chris's tone turned rueful. Even now, I still find that whole thing absurd. Once I recovered from my injuries and went back, you were already gone. Suddenly, I realized the root of all the misunderstandings. That photo, it was of me, wasn't it? Chris nodded. I found it online. It was taken when you enrolled at school, a candid shot. The camera must have distorted it slightly, which is probably why you didn't recognize yourself. And when we met again, you'd already figured it out? He looked at me meaningfully. Oh my God. All this time? I was the so-called white moonlight he had been looking for. Chris's proposal couldn't have gone more perfectly. Before the wedding banquet, though, I had one pressing issue, finding 4 bridesmaids. Salma was too scared to show up, she was afraid Chris would kill her on the spot. And I wasn't close enough with anyone else to ask. In desperation, I ran into the study to beg. You guys have connections. Help me out. When I looked up, the first thing I saw was a sharp, refined jawline. A sculpted nose. Frameless glasses perched perfectly in place. I gulped involuntarily. Brother. Daddy, I called out in the softest, most seductive voice imaginable. Our eyes locked. Tension crackled in the air like static. Chris bent down and effortlessly picked me up from where I'd clung to his leg. He kicked open the bedroom door. That normally reserved, noble man, once in bed, he turned into a total scoundrel. My legs were weak as I tried to crawl off the bed. Before I could touch the floor, he grabbed my wrist and dragged me back again. Wrong again, sweetheart, he said, voice hoarse. Try calling me, husband. It was like someone flipped a switch inside him. Again, he growled. My throat was raw. When would it ever end? For the first time, I found myself missing those quiet days, when I used to pretend to be mute in Chris's bed. Looking back, I never imagined the silent girl curled in his bed would become his bride. Turns out, I wasn't a stand-in for anyone. I was the one he never forgot. And now, every time he calls me wifey, my heart still races like it's the first time.